Hi guys, Steady Eddie here. Hope all's well with everyone. Well, just over a month ago, I posted a video declaring that I had an alcohol problem and I had finally decided to do something about it. I poured my heart out in the video and many of you gave me some very, very kind support. So I'll thank everybody for your kind words. I really, really do appreciate that. Well, I did it. I finally did it. After returning from my travels in early March, I gradually weaned my way off the booze over a period of weeks, gradually drinking less and less until I literally ran out of alcohol at home and vowed that I wasn't going to purchase any more alcohol or drink any more alcohol. So that's it. I've now spent the last month sober. Now, if you want the background to this, I posted an earlier video called I'm Going to Fight This Alcoholism. Go and check that one out if you haven't already seen it. And once again, thanks for all your kind support, guys. So now I suppose I'm teetotal, even though I don't like that word, that teetotal. I think it's a bit of a namby-pamby word. But I haven't drank alcohol for a whole month. I've finally done it after dreaming of doing it for many, many years. Yeah, I've finally kicked the booze. So how does it feel being off the booze? Well, I never actually consider myself to be a fully hardcore alcoholic, not the stereotypical slobbering, aggressive, foul-mouthed, falling over drunk. I was never really like that. Except on certain occasions, you know, maybe a bit of that. But no, not really. But the fact is, I drank booze, beer, wine and spirits. I drank them all every night for 30 years. That's a long time. So I clearly had some sort of alcohol dependency. Rather than being an alcoholic, I think it was more of an alcohol dependence. I think that's the correct phrase. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, okay, so he's been off the booze now for a month and he's acting as if he knows it all. He's an expert on the subject. No, I'm not an expert on sobriety at all. But the fact is, I've managed to get off the booze for the first time. I've spent a whole month off the booze. And the last time I spent a month off the booze was when Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister. And no, that's not a joke. So it really, really means a lot to me. And so how is the first month of being off the booze? Well, I'll share a few thoughts with you. Well, I suppose the biggest fear about not having any beer at home is that one night you may get desperate for it and you may end up climbing walls. So I weaned my way off the booze gradually. You know, as you may recall, I was drinking the booze whilst watching TV of a night time, relaxing, or maybe being on the internet. It gets a bit boring when you haven't got a drink at hand. But really, when I arrived back from my travels early March, I had 9 bottles of beer in the fridge, and I consumed those gradually over a period of weeks. I also had bottles of gin and rum. The thing is, I phased it out gradually, and in the meantime, I was finding alternatives of things to drink, because all of a sudden you take the booze away, it gets really dull. So I was finding alternatives to drink instead. I'll come back to that in a moment. As for wine, I like wine. I like wine a lot. The problem is it goes down very, very quickly. I could consume a bottle of wine in a very, very short space of time. So I just didn't buy any more wine. I didn't buy any more beer. I vowed that once those bottles had run out, that was it, no more. And it came to the point when it was only these spirits that I was drinking, really. So I gradually phased it out over the period of those weeks. So after a period of a few weeks, I gradually got down to about 10% of my usual alcohol consumption. And in the final week, I actually spent a few days at a time not drinking anything at all. By then, I'd resolved that once my alcohol finished, I was not going to bring any more alcohol into the home. And I was no longer scared, really, because I'd spent a few days being alcohol-free, and even that was a big deal for me. I was then getting used to not drinking alcohol, and it no longer scared me the thought of having no alcohol at home. And I had resolved by then that once the alcohol was finished, that's it. No more alcohol is coming into this home. And then came the grand finale, the final evening. The final evening, I think I had one bottle of beer left in the fridge and a few shots of rum. And basically the final evening, I drank the bottle of beer, and finally I consumed the last drops of rum in that bottle. And that was it. No more alcohol. That was it. No more alcohol in the home, and a vow never to buy any more alcohol and bring it into the home. That's it. I'm without alcohol now. Okay, so I know this all sounds a bit dramatic, and some of you will say, so you've taken a month off the booze. So what? I take a month off the booze every January. It's no big deal. Well, I think it is a big deal, really, because if you can take a month off the alcohol regularly, then you are not really an alcoholic or an alcohol dependent, because a true alcoholic simply can't do that. They have a dependency on alcohol, and they need the alcohol every day. Remember, I drank every day for 30 years. And so for me to take a month off the booze, it really, really is a big deal. So when you come off the booze, what are the first things that you notice? Well, one of the things that you notice, first of all, is how the cost of your shopping has gone down. I mean, your supermarket shopping may go from £120 a week to just £60 a week. Yeah, you really, really do notice that. It is a huge saving. And not buying the alcohol means that, that all adds up over the course of a year. It'll be interesting to see how much I've saved simply by not purchasing any more alcohol by the end of the year. So how do you overcome what is probably the biggest problem when you give up the booze? What do you replace it with? Well, as I've already said, I don't go to pubs. Most of my alcohol consumption was at home whilst watching the TV or being on the internet or simply relaxing after a day's work. So what do you replace alcohol with? I mean, well, I suppose you could drink water instead. That's probably the best thing, but I think it gets a bit boring drinking water all the time. So replacing alcohol, well, you can replace alcohol with soft drinks, cola or lemonade or diet cola, diet lemonade, whatever you want. Now I know some people say, oh, no. I mean, I wouldn't have drank those things myself before giving up the booze. But you do kind of get used to them. After a while, you can find your own favourite soft drinks to drink. It is a bit of a problem trying to find alternatives to alcohol. But if you kind of get used to certain brands of non-alcoholic, low-calorie drinks. And I know when it comes to low-calorie drinks, diet cola and all of that, you will get people who will say to you, no, they're not good for you. They've got all these additives and things. Don't drink them, they're no good. Well, I don't know. I mean, it gets a little bit of a head wrecker after a while. I mean, it seems like there's absolutely nothing you can eat or drink that somebody won't say is bad for you. You have to use your own adult judgment. But all I'll say is that personally, for now, I have found myself a few nice low-calorie drinks which I feel comfortable drinking of a night time, and I'll sort of stick with those for now. So one of the reasons I gave up the booze is because I need to lose weight. I'm probably a couple of stone overweight, not grossly obese, but a couple of stone overweight. And in terms of alcohol, between the beer, wine, and spirits, I reckon I was consuming at least 1,000 calories a day, probably more like 10,000 calories a week in alcohol. That's a lot. Now, I thought that by giving up the booze alone, that would cause the weight to drop off me. Well, it hasn't up to now, and giving up the alcohol certainly hasn't killed my appetite. I've been having plenty of roast dinners, too many roast dinners recently, and that's probably why I haven't really lost any weight. So giving up the alcohol alone will not give you a lean body. But what it does do is that it releases the burden of alcohol. I mean, alcohol can be a burden. So many times people have suggested certain diets to me, like keto diet or whatever. And the first question I often ask is, can you drink beer on that diet? Well, quite obviously not. I mean, alcohol and diets do not go very, very well together. But, now that I've released the burden of alcohol, I feel when the time is right, I can go on a healthy diet, a healthy low-calorie diet, because I don't have that weight of alcohol on me. You know what I mean? Alcohol can be a bit of a burden. Release the burden of alcohol, and you can start doing other things. So when I say releasing the burden of alcohol, I mean, can affect other things in your life, like driving a car. I mean, as you will know, if you drink alcohol one evening or late at night, then you may well be over the limit the following day, especially early on in the day. So I must admit, in the past, I've driven a car and I've worried about, maybe the alcohol that I was consuming the previous evening. But now I'm stone cold sober, so I don't have to worry about anything like that. So I can drive any time. I can drive morning, afternoon, night. Not a problem. I'm stone cold sober. And it really, really, really does give you a bit of peace of mind. So another thought after being off the booze for a month, how about physical health? Giving up alcohol, does that give you better physical health? Well, it's too early for me to say just yet, of course. But the answer has got to be yes, of course it does. Alcohol is not good for you. Now, after a month, do you physically feel better? Do you physically feel healthier? Well, for one thing, I'm not getting those terrible hangovers that I got before. It's nice not to have those, so that's one of the first things you notice. But after a while, you do start feeling a little bit physically healthy. It's not obvious at first, and there isn't one moment that comes when you think, that's it, I feel physically better. It's just gradually when you realise, you're moving about and you're thinking and you're generally feeling a little bit better. I don't mean you get out of bed and start doing cartwheels all over the place every morning. I don't mean like that, but generally you will feel physically better after a month. It's not, no alarm bells will ring or anything. But you just feel better, really, being off the booze. And you will gradually come to realise that. And how about sleep? Well, a lot of people believe that you need a bit of alcohol, a bit of beer or whatever, in order to sleep well of a night time. And I thought that, I must admit, one of the fears I had was that giving up the booze would mean that I wasn't sleeping so well of a night time or struggling to get to sleep. But no, it hasn't been a problem. If I'm tired, then I sleep. It's not a problem, really. In fact, personally, giving up the alcohol, in terms of sleep, it just hasn't made any difference at all, really. Not a problem. And this brings me to the really, really big question. The long-term effects of being sober. Well, of course, it's too early for me to say just yet. But what I will say is that I'm 60 years of age, and I had sort of resigned myself after so many years of drinking booze excessively. That I was not going to live to a ripe old age. I'm never going to see 70, probably not even 65 the way that I'm going on. The effects of drinking over so many years takes its toll on your liver or other organs. And, I sort of resign myself to believing that I'm going to drink my way into an early grave. But now, having given up the booze for a month or so, I feel differently. I'm feeling physically a little bit better. Um, I think it's probably only a matter. I mean, I'd like to think that the liver repairs itself after a while, as people tell you it does. I don't know about that. We'll see about that. But now I'm feeling more optimistic. Giving up the booze really makes you feel more optimistic about your life. And I really, really now think, I may well live to 70. I'm eating a bit healthier now than what I did before. I've given up the booze. I may well live to see 70 or maybe even 80. Of course, there's no guarantee of any of that. You never guarantee, but I think I've got more of a chance now than I did before when I was an alcohol dependent. So, one final thought. Is that it now? No more beer, wine or spirits for me ever again? Well, with regards to bringing beer, wine and spirits into the home, the answer is yes, never again. I can now pass the shelves in supermarkets without even giving the alcohol shelves a second glance. I simply don't need it. I certainly don't need it at home. I'm no longer an alcohol dependent in that way. At home, I can drink soft drinks, or maybe fruit juices, where I was drinking alcohol before. I'm not an alcohol dependent anymore, and I suppose that's really quite a big thing to say. So that's it as far as being at home is concerned. I'm not bringing any more alcohol into the house. But what about travel? Now there's something else, isn't it? What about travel? As you will know, I have a travel channel, and many a time on that travel channel, you've seen me with the beer in hand or other things, glass of rum, whatever. How about travel? Well, what can we say there? Now, when I'm in a hot climate and I'm walking along a beach in in sweltering hot weather, and I've built up a thirst, and it's a beautiful hot tropical day in some Asian or wherever climate, and my throat's dry, and I think to myself, wow, I really, really need a cold beer right now. I see other people at pavement cafes drinking a nice cold beer, and I'm thinking to myself, well, that's what I need right now. So am I still going to be teetotal then? Am I still going to abstain from alcohol when I'm in a hot, sunny climate during my travels? Well, all I'll say is that I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. That's all I can say right now. Okay, so that's enough from me anyway. I've spent a whole month off the booze. The first time I've done so in 30 years, and I've given up the booze. I'm not an alcohol dependent anymore, and I feel good for it. So I'll say thanks for watching, guys, and a big thanks once again for your support. If you want to see the background, once again, check out the earlier video that I made called I'm Gonna Fight This Alcoholism. It's there on my list. And in the meantime, I'll say thanks for watching. Have a great day, a great evening. Thanks again for your support, guys, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.